Welcome to 8 Spotlight, where we go founder by founder, startup by startup to spotlight the people shaping the future. I'm your host, Samantha from 8 Capital, a pre demo day YC fund with over 200 portfolio companies. And after years of backing some of the most exciting early stage startups in the world, we're using 8 Spotlight to share stories, insights, and the lessons we get to see up close. Today's episode is one that I've really been looking forward to. We're diving into friendship, specifically how technology can help women form deeper, more meaningful relationships. Joining me is Dorothy Li, co-founder of RealRoots, a fast-growing Y Combinator-backed company that's reimagining how women connect. Fresh out of the YC Summer 25 batch, RealRoots is tackling one of the most human problems there is, loneliness, and doing it with AI at the center. So, okay, Dorothy, thank you for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. Okay, Dorothy, let's start at the beginning. What inspired Real Roots?
Well, my own personal experience. So I am a mission-driven startup builder by trade. But my first two startups I worked on were in the education space, which as a new grad entering the workforce, I just thought was the most important problem. It's a problem that touched my life at that point in time the most. But as an adult, like living adult experiences, moving to different cities for work and for a partner once as well, I experienced what now I now think is the biggest problem of our generation, which is loneliness, the lack of social connection. As I moved to new cities, it took me many months and sometimes a year or more to find really good friends. And once I found really good friends in a city, my life really began and I became happy and actualized. And the period where I was just waiting for that life to unfold, I remember as almost dead space in my life. And I think that we deserve better than that. So I wanted to work on Real Roots as my next step and to solve the loneliness epidemic in the US.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem right now, and I think that's a really lovely problem to tackle. You've spoken a little bit about how women experience constant shifts in their social circles. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Our initial hypothesis was that people would choose builders primarily after a life moving to a new city. And that happens on average, 20% of Americans in their 20s and 30s move each year. So that's happening constantly within a life. But as we started working on Real Roots, we found that half of our users are actually coming to us after a life change. And that's most notably after a breakup or divorce, after a new marriage, or after a new motherhood, or their best friends have become mothers and they haven't caught up yet. So it's changes in their life stage and also changes in their best friend's life stage that can cause a rupture in an existing social circle and leave people with a void and an openness to meet new people. Here's an interesting stat. Research shows that women lose half of their friends every 7 years, which is it just goes to show you what a rapid rate of disintegration our social circle naturally has if you don't do anything about it.
Wow, half of their friends every 7 years is actually wild.
It is, isn't it? If you just think about it, that's the rate of people moving away or their life stages changing ahead of yours or differently than yours, or their priorities and their values are shifting in a way that's different from yours. There's just natural and healthy ruptures in relationships.
That's a little sad.
I know. You know, the way I think of it is you're still friends with the people who maybe moved away or become moms when you're not. It's just that the frequency of interactions might be a lot lower. And that gives you openness to meet new people. And if you think about it in a positive way, that gives you the opportunity to have so many more meaningful relationships in your life and to have your life expanded through more perspectives than before. So in some ways, it's beautiful.
Well, when you explain it like that, it sounds beautiful.
Yeah, that's how I really see it.
Was there a personal moment that made you realize how deep this problem really runs?
For me, it's the relocations, but also in my 30s, I experienced so many close friends becoming new moms. And of course, new motherhood is all encompassing. So a friend that I used to see and talk to maybe every day would become a friend that I would see and talk to maybe every month. And that is normal and healthy for the difference in our life stages. But yeah, but I think around a move was the most drastic because for me at least I would come from a city where I had a really robust community to a city where I literally had nobody and I just felt intense isolation and loneliness as I struggled to meet new people meaningfully and build those connections again.
So you decided to do something about it.
Exactly. I wanted to solve my own problem. It actually, before I started working on RealRoots, I came up with this idea when I was working full time at Cambly, when I first joined Cambly, because I relocated for Cambly and I was really struggling to rebuild.
Nice.
So I was pitching all of my founder friends, men mostly, to start RealRoots. I didn't realize at the time that starting with one gender first would be the best solution, but I was pitching them to start something like RealRoots, and I didn't get any takers, unfortunately. So because of that, I realized I had to build it myself.
Their loss.
Definitely, definitely their loss. I also think they might not have been the right founders for it. So maybe they were wise as well. Because I really do believe that starting with one gender first, and specifically the female gender, is the easiest approach.
And why is that?
Because different genders connect differently. When I was interviewing user interviews across all genders, I found that most notably men and women bond differently. And women tend to, when they're looking for platonic friendships, they tend to prefer other women. And when men are looking for platonic friendships, especially around shared experiences and deep conversations, actually they want co-ed environments, or they want very activity driven environments. That's just pretty different to how women like to bond. So it became obvious to me when I was doing user interviews, I had to pick like the perfect product for one gender at a time. And I started with women because I am a woman. So it made
Sense.
sense.
Yeah. It's like when you write what you know. And when
Exactly.
you build what you know.
Yeah, totally. I believe that there's more market readiness for women than there are for other genders. So by going first for women, it made a lot of sense.
Why do you think that there's more market readiness? What do you think contributes to that?
Yeah, because joining a product that helps you make new friends is a vulnerable experience because you have to first be self aware that you have openness for new friends. Maybe you're feeling a bit lonely and maybe you're going through a life change and then you need to actually do something about it. It's harder. Society conditions men, so it's harder for them to admit that they're feeling lonely and they're going through that, a more isolated phase.
Yeah.
Right now, I think people are starting to be willing to talk about loneliness more than ever before. And that trend is happening, especially strongly with young women.
So it's a perfect time to build something now that it's in the limelight.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you can't solve a problem until you first admit you have a problem. Historically, there is a stigma around talking about needing new friends because the impression might be, oh, if you don't have friends, maybe there's something wrong with you. But more and more, we're realizing that's not the case at all. It just means that your life stage is changing, or maybe your friend's life stage is changing, and that it actually happens to all of us across our lifespan.
Yeah. Friendships, I feel like, are particularly difficult because when you have a friendship, you never expect it to really end. Meanwhile, when you're starting a romantic relationship, unless you're, getting married, there's always in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, it's either this goes one way or it ends. So I feel like with friendship in particular, it's almost like even more vulnerable when you're starting from a place where you need to like have more friends because you're, reeling from the loss of like someone who you thought would be there forever.
It's so true. So when women join Real Roots, we ask them what life stages they're going through, life experiences they're going through, and we actually see that 35% tell us that they recently experienced a friend breakup. And sometimes there are healthy friend breakups, like your priorities are just changing or your friends moved away. But sometimes it's other types of rifts as well.
That makes sense. Okay, so walk me through the earliest version of Real Roots. What did it look like?
Yeah. So when I was prototyping this concept, it was a very manual process. I would have people sign up, fill out a short Google form survey. Then I would interview them for a few minutes, figure out, what they're looking for and what their personality is like. And then I would decide who to match them with inside of their community. And also to get users in the beginning, I was like posting flyers all over San Francisco. I was in Facebook groups. I was DMing people one by one, especially if they wrote in a group that they were new to SF. So very, very manual. And I was also our first guide, our first facilitator. And I was at all the events and I was guiding some of the deep conversations and observing firsthand, like what was working, what wasn't. So it was very manual, but it was important, I think, that it was so manual because when I met my technical co-founder, I actually met her in Real Roots itself. She was one of the early users.
That's so cool.
It was really lucky. I was co-founder dating in earnest at that point, and I was going through all the normal channels and the YC co-founder dating forum, also my personal network at the GSB, and I was really struggling to find the perfect fit. But now I will tell anybody, if you are looking for a co-founder and you already know what you're going to build, you might as well just start building it, even if you're non-technical. Build what you can, and the people who really identify with your mission, they'll come to you as a user.
That's really inspiring.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. And we've extended it to first hires as well. So now that we have completed our seed round raise, we are hiring, and we're hiring first and foremost through Realtors users. Yeah.
So, how does that work? Did you just like send out an email to those who use your product, or is it on your website? How did you find those people?
Well, Tara, my co-founder, I found because I was still running the experiences myself. So I saw her at an experience, and I was intentionally trying to put myself, especially in front of people that I thought might be a good candidate. So I was checking all the user profiles as they came in, and I saw that she was technical and she had a really good early stage startup background. And then I approached her on, I think, night two of her journey. I wasn't her guide, but I was at all the experiences. I basically told her in the first 2 minutes, "Hi, I'm Dorothy. I'm the founder of RealRoots, and I'm looking for a co-founder."
Nice.
Luckily, she leaned in immediately and she said, "Oh my gosh, I love RealRoots. I already feel like I've made good friends, and it's only night 2. I would love to talk about being your co-founder." And then we just took it from there.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. So that was Tara. And now we send out emails to our user base and we say, hey, we would love to talk to a past user because these people really understand our product and we're looking to grow our team and we're looking to hire these roles. We've been really lucky that we have a large enough community of engaged users. And this mission attracts so many wonderful, talented women that we actually do have a pretty healthy recruiting pipeline just from our users.
That's incredible.
Yeah, super lucky.
Okay. So, when did you feel like things were first really working?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In different stages, I would say. Well, my first test was I wanted to know if other women were like me and had this problem and wanted to pay for a solution. So my first test was on Facebook. I DM'd, I think it was 3,000 different women. Over time, of course, because Facebook rate limit you. And by the end, I could only DM like 20 or 30 a day or something like that. But anyway, I DM'd 3,000 women across time and I asked them, hey, like I'm creating a product just for you, basically, because I was like you. I was new to an area. I was new to San Francisco once, and I would love for you to try my product. And I saw that 11% purchase. They purchased a matching ticket, basically, to the first event. And that showed me that a huge number of women had openness to meet new people. And that gave me my first point of validation. And the second thing I wanted to test is, does the product actually work? So people lean in, they pay for something. Can I actually deliver meaningful friendships that last? And that took time to tell. But I'm happy to report that my first cohorts are still hanging out and they are now each other's bridesmaids. They've traveled internationally with one another. Their partners are now best friends because the women hang out so much. And I just had so many of these like early proof points where amazing friendships were coming out of the early groups that I became convinced that people are willing to pay for this product. It's a massive problem that affects most women from one year to the next. And also, this product actually works. So it's time to scale. And around that time, I met Tara, who is my technical co founder, and she built our first software MVP that was able to handle significantly more scale than me running it by hand. And then as we grew even more, we brought on our CTO, Nova, who is an experienced software engineer, and we were able to scale to our current stage.
That's incredible.
I was able to start selling initial tickets immediately, but it took me some iteration to figure out what would work in terms of creating a product that is so meaningful that people lean in after night one and actually make really good friends throughout the product experience. That took time. And each iteration cycle can be multiple months because that's how long it often takes for friendships to form. So there was some time in the first year or two of beta testing and starting the company that wasn't really sure which way it was going to go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, that iteration, was it you changing what exactly would happen during these meetings, the format of these meetings. Can you talk a little bit about what you would change?
Well, starting early in the funnel, it's how would I introduce the product? Like, what is our marketing copy? What has resonance? Is it highlighting the events? Is it highlighting the new friendships that might unfold? Is it highlighting the fact that it's curated conversations? I wasn't really sure what value prop would resonate the most. So we did a bunch of testing in that way. And then also the next step is matching. I wasn't sure which matching criteria would matter the most to the most people. And that took some iteration. And lastly, the product experience itself. I wasn't sure if deep conversation plus activity was the right format, or was it more activity or more deep conversation? How long would I need to hold this container of repeat encounters before real friendships occurred? All of those things took some months to test.
Eventually, you launched Lisa, your AI bestie,
Yes.
and that seems to have been a big turning point. So, can you explain Lisa and also what changed after that?
Yeah, Lisa does three major things. The first thing is she helps with matching. So she kind of replaces the human in the beginning. In the very beginning, I would interview everybody, and I would be able to interpret some unspoken nuances about how the matching should go for that individual person. And now Lisa can do that just as well as a human, maybe even better than many humans. And then the second bit that Lisa is really good at is the planning and coordination across the group. And that probably is the number one biggest unlock of this era. Historically, a person might say in real life companies where you have to create custom events is something that would struggle to scale. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But in this age, the AI age, all of a sudden that limitation goes away and we can scale really custom and personalized and intricate events at a blink of an eye.
So, what did you learn about how users interacted with Lisa that surprised you the most?
Hmm. I think the most surprising thing was how much people enjoy talking to Lisa. I suspected Lisa would be really good at matching, and that much has been true. If you think about how well ChatGPT knows you when you talk to it every day, ChatGPT knows you really well. And Lisa's amazing at intuiting personality characteristics. But I didn't realize that people would love talking to Lisa so much that we would need to keep raising the time limit for how long we allowed people to talk to Lisa. And we ultimately, because people like talking to Lisa so much, we brought her top of funnel as a freemium product, and it's been growing virally. And that's been a user acquisition channel in itself.
Wow, incredible. So, can you explain how Lisa actually works?
So, top of funnel, you might land on our website or download our app and choose to talk to Lisa as a personality quiz. So, basically, the value prop, the marketing copy is learn how you come across to other people by talking to Lisa for 5 to 10 minutes. People call Lisa and she asks a series of deep questions. It only takes about 10 minutes for her to really get to know you. And she'll ask deep follow on questions based on whatever you because she's trying to intentionally get to know you. And then after your conversation, she'll give you your results, which will be some personality learnings that she's gotten from you. And they're very insightful, actually. If you want to learn more, she'll tell you how you can improve your social skills as well. And if you want to learn even more, you can download the app and take more personality quizzes and even talk to Lisa up to 30 minutes a day.
So, what makes your AI matching approach different from traditional compatibility tools?
Previous to integrating with Lisa, the closest approximation to the Lisa experience is if you had a human matchmaker who would ask you deep questions about what you're looking for. And they would learn from your answers, but also they would learn from the unspoken nuances of how you conveyed your answer as well. So that was the historical next best approach, but that approach just doesn't really scale. So because of Lisa and Voice AI, we've been able to replicate that very human experience.
That makes sense to me. So, you've talked about three compatibility buckets: known traits, discoverable traits, and hidden traits. Can you explain those a little bit and how that actually comes together to create a real match?
Yeah, definitely. So previous to integration with Lisa, we would focus on the first two buckets of traits. And that's basically traits that you prefer, and then traits about your preferences that are knowable to you. So you're able to express them. And examples of this would be you might say, I want to meet women who live nearby where I live, and it doesn't matter where they work because I don't spend a lot of time in the office anyway. And I really prefer if they're around the same age, they're in the same life stage, and they know a few things about tech as well because I talk about tech a lot. So those are knowable preferences that you can disclose. Another bucket would be knowable traits about yourself that you just didn't know were important. And examples of this might be your level of extroversion, how you self disclose your feeling of leaning into a new conversation with a new person. And we've noticed, for example, that if you experience social anxiety in the very beginning of a friendship, you do best with someone who doesn't experience it to the same degree because they can draw you out more. And those are things that you might not know about yourself, but you can certainly disclose your personal experience. And the last bucket of traits are traits that you don't know about yourself. So it makes it very difficult for you to disclose. Examples are your quirkiness level, your level of emotional stability, your thoughtfulness level, and even your intelligence to some degree. These traits are very hard to self-report because people traditionally just don't know where they fall on the spectrum. And so what you actually need is an impartial third-party assessor, such as a human matchmaker or Lisa, voice AI, to interact with you and make an assessment on where you land on some of these traits. And that feeds into our matching. So that is the big unlock of the AI age.
So, what have you learned about how women connect emotionally through AI?
Yeah, through AI, that's interesting. Well, what we've learned is women love talking to AI and they form an emotional bond with Lisa through the process of sharing vulnerable data about themselves, information about their emotional state, and then feeling that Lisa validates them. So just as women make real human bonds through that same process, they're also bonding with Lisa.
Okay, so I'm going to segue that into some questions about the compatibility of AI and real human friendships. So, some people are still skeptical about using tech or AI to form friendships. What would you say to those who shy away from that idea?
Think that there is a place for AI, um, and it's not as a friendship replacement. It's as a friendship accelerant where AI can help match you with in real life humans and in real life experiences that are really going to elevate your life. And AI can plan and coordinate all of those experiences, bring you end to end. So you don't have the friction of sourcing people that you might really get along with and also coordinating yourself. That is, in my mind, the place of AI.
So, can something artificial really create something real? And how does RealRoots prove that that's possible?
Yeah, I think something artificial, I think AI can lead you to the in real life circumstances where you create something real. We know that we're biologically programmed to connect deeper in real life and with real humans in a way that's different than the way we connect with AI, at least in its current state. But AI can be that broker of those relationships, that matchmaker and that planner and the coordinator that brings you to your really meaningful in real life experiences. We've demonstrated through our traction and our success to date that it works. If we can facilitate systematically the right conditions for friendships to form in real life, friendships do form.
Okay. Well, that brings me to the fact that RealRoots is growing fast.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is driving that momentum?
I think it's user readiness, it's consumer readiness for this product. We are lonelier as a society than we've ever been before. Right now, that loneliness is coupled with openness to talk about the problem, which historically, maybe 10 years ago, we didn't have. The best analogy I have is we are with friendships where we were with online dating 15, 20 years ago, where people were just starting to normalize and feel open to paying for an online date, whereas previously maybe they weren't. And now, of course, we know that most marriages are coming from online dates. It's the number one way people meet their life partners now. And I believe that friendships are going the same way as that, where if you fast forward another 5 to 10 years, almost all friendships will be coming first from the online space and then brought into the in real life space.
So, what's working best for your user acquisition? Community, paid marketing, organic growth?
Yeah, really good question. Organic is always really important. It's our highest conversion bucket where people are ultimately more ready to lean in when they know if Real Roots has worked for their mom or their best friend or a female colleague maybe, but also we're growing via Instagram. So we have a pretty vibrant Instagram channel. It's called RealRoots Gals. That's our handle. And we post content on a weekly, multiple times a week. We need to ramp that up even more, actually. And we have a following of almost 200K followers.
Wow.
Thank you. It took some time to grow.
So, how are you thinking about monetization and long term relationships with your users?
Yeah, we have decided early that we were going to charge and we were going to deliver a premium product to start. And that's going to extend into our follow on products as well. So, what I mean is, there are other products out there in the market that are free or low cost, like Bumble BFF, Meetup.com, even Facebook groups to some extent. And they just don't deliver as much of a service. So it's not consistently guaranteed to work. It takes a lot of work on the user side in order to get any fruit from those methods of making new friends. So our methodology was, you know what? We're going to guarantee that it works and we're going to do all the heavy lifting where you meet compatible people. You're guaranteed to see them multiple times until friendships develop. And also, we're going to even facilitate those meetups so that you are guided through deep conversations and also fun experiences. So we curate the end-to-end friendship formation and we charge for it. Real Roots is about $300 for your first group of friends. And from then on, we haven't figured out what comes next yet, but it definitely will be paid as well and it'll be thoughtfully designed.
So, has there ever been a case where one of the facilitators becomes really good friends with someone in that group during a conversation?
Our guides are modified users. They are users who are looking for new friends, but they've chosen to be a guide. So they basically have opted into training to learn our methodology on how to run and host events. And then they get assignments. But we mash them into groups based on who they are, just in the same way that we match users into groups. So it's very common that guides become very close friends. In fact, Tara, my co-founder, one of her best friends was her guide.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
So, what's your vision for the next few years? Beyond friendship, where do you see Real Roots growing?
That's a really good question. I think that people have so much more appetite for a larger community in addition to friendships. So we're following people through their relocation journey. First, they land in a new city, and their hair on fire problem is they need some people to call friends and to share their lives with. But actually, they're rebuilding everything. They're rebuilding their larger community, their yoga group, their professional group, their neighborhood group. They're maybe even looking for a life partner. They're also looking for, a salon that they really enjoy. They're looking for their neighborhood watering hole or yoga studio. There's a lot that they're looking to rebuild inside of a new city. And we're here to support all of that.
Do you think that you'll eventually expand to men, or is that female focus essential to the magic?
I think that the female market is massive and we can become a massive company with just women users. However, of course, I'm aware that if you want to solve loneliness, you need to approach both genders because the loneliness epidemic applies to every demographic equally. So we're open to it. It's just not our near term focus. We're laser focused on women for now.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. What's this journey taught you about building a product around emotion rather than just utility?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you're building a consumer product, ultimately you're always building around emotion, whether or not your company is as touchy feely as Real Roots. It's still an emotional marketing play that you're kind of targeting. Real Roots is very emotional because we're taking people in a vulnerable emotional state, which is they're new, they're flustered, they're isolated, they're lonely, and we're transforming them into someone that's adjusted into their community. So we're basically offering them stability, companionship, relief, acceptance. So it's very much an emotional journey. I think that the more you can understand a user's emotional state and the better you can transform that emotional state to a positive one, the more value you create in their lives. Because ultimately we're chasing happiness in life. And if I can say, I can take you from this state, which is not as happy, to this state that is happy, who wouldn't buy that product?
Yeah, that's really lovely. So, how do you approach leadership and empathy as a founder building for women?
Well, we've been lucky enough to be growing our team inside of our user base, from our user base. So, what that means is we have an amazing team of women so far, of course, open to bringing on all genders. but luckily enough to have amazing women on the team so far. What I found is, and I found this in my ed tech experience as well, if you lead with kindness, collaboration, and empathy, your team then treats the guys and then with the same kindness and empathy as you treat them. And then the guys then treat the users with that same level. So basically, the culture comes from the founders. It flows down to the team and then flows down to the user base and into the product. So I think it's really important when you're building a community product that has a high emphasis on collaboration and empathy and acceptance that you also start with your team for building those cultural values.
What's been your biggest surprise since launching RealRoots?
I think it was a surprise to me how much the market resonates with this product. When you're a founder and you're building for yourself, sometimes the question is, how many other people are like me and have this exact same problem as me? And through building RealRoots, I found that the answer is a resounding so many people are like me. I'm luckily not unique at all in this need for more human connection at various points in my life. So that was surprising. Also, I feel very fortunate to be building in the AI age because now event coordination to a very high degree of personalization is suddenly possible and at a fraction of the cost as it was previously when we were using human planners. So that's another big revelation and surprise as well.
That allows you to match more people
Yeah.
and create more lasting friendships.
And to scale in real life.
What do you look in for your investor relationships?
Yeah. Well, we love it when an investor has past consumer experience because they can often see around some corners and share insights with us. But I think also having investors that are supportive and understand that the startup journey is full of ups and downs and growth is never linear is also really important as well. We've benefited significantly from our investors, not only as moral support, but as a way to recognize market trends. And I actually credit one investor that we have for mentioning to us that voice AI was just taking off across all industries. And we had previously thought Lisa would be a text AI product, but actually it was the right move to try and experiment with voice AI because that is the product that really took off. So I think that having engaged investors that are supportive and have their ear to the ground in terms of market trends is really important for a startup's growth.
Finally,
Yeah.
we're nearing the end. What advice would you give to founders building for real human connection in an increasingly digital world?
I think it's more important than ever. I think you have a bigger opportunity than ever, especially with AI. You just have to look at what does AI empower now that wasn't possible before. And I really believe the curation of in real life events is that big unlock. Previously, it was too labor intensive to scale. Now suddenly it isn't.
That's pretty cool. Dorothy, this has been such an inspiring conversation. RealRoots is proving that technology doesn't have to replace human connection, but it can actually deepen it, which is, I think, very comforting for a lot of people to hear.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us on 8 Spotlight.
Thanks for having me. I love being here.
Oh, good. I'm glad. You can learn more about RealRoots at therealroots.com and follow their journey on Instagram at RealRootsGals. 8 Spotlight is brought to you by 8 Capital, a pre-demo day YC fund with over 200 portfolio companies, each one shaping the future, one founder story at a time.